Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Hour Live fun-filled evening. We've got episode 159 on the docket tonight, and we've got a regular on the show tonight. We've got Alex Winter, who, as you know, we've had on several times in the past for the Hake's auction previews that we've done and some of the recaps, of course. But he's been posting a lot of artwork into his CAF gallery, and so we felt it was finally time to have him on the show and talk to him as a collector. So I think you're in for a treat tonight. He needs to do a CAF cribs. Well, he definitely needs to do a CAF cribs, Marcus, especially after you see what his office looks like now, because he's turned the camera and now you get to see more of the walls and everything. I think he should definitely, at the very least, do a cribs walkthrough of his office space. So I'm not going to leave him in the green room any longer. We'll get this thing started. So let me bring Alex in and welcome you to the show, Alex. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I am absolutely fantastic. I'm, we've got Heroes coming up this weekend, so we've been, plotting and planning that for that. Every collector has a strategy that goes to that show because there's just so many darn artists, at it, and you have to have a plan of attack because you're not going to get a sketch from everybody at that place.
Right. Well, we will be there, so stop by. Sean Rutan, our art specialist, and Kevin Poling from sister company Diamond International Galleries. They'll be at our booth, so stop by and say hi and get a preview of the July auction and the artwork that will be in it. We have a portfolio there of some of the pieces.
Oh, cool. Well, so that's why Sean is. We have a Facebook group message kind of chat going on about Heroes, and Sean was in it. And I thought, well, that's interesting that Sean's going to be there. Now I know he's working while he's there.
He's supposed to be working, so
yeah, I won't repeat anything I've seen him say in that chat group, but no, Sean will be the life of the party, like he is. I'm sure every time you guys get to hang out with
sure.
him.
Yep, good guy. I'm glad he's on. Glad he's on our team.
That's true. And speaking of Sean, I mean, now that we can see more of your office, so Sean, there's something in the background there that Sean had a hand in, isn't it?
Right. So the video game console there, for a while he was building those and customizing them, and so I asked him to do one for me, and it was taking him a long time, and then he finally decided just to sell me the one that was his. So I got the one that was the Batcade version. It's got like 4,000 games, 2,000 console, 2,000 arcade games. And the case is purple. My office is purple for a variety of reasons, and it sort of fit in, and part of the decor at this point.
Well, it's awesome. I used to have a purple office myself, but went to the Florida tan color that's prevalent around here. But yeah, no, it's cool. It's funny just because I feel like. So do you have two desks, work desks that you have at that?
One giant L-shaped desk.
So well, the other desk look like or the other chair looks like it's the seat of power in the room, but that's just
no. That's the seat you don't want to be in. That's when I call you into my office. That's Kelly's chair most of the time.
Oh, all right, I get it now. See, all right, it makes a lot more sense now. But it looks so looks so expensive, I guess. Corinthian leather kind of look to it.
You don't want to be on that side of the desk, trust me.
All right, now it's making a whole lot more sense to me. All right, well, so Alex, I mean, we've had you on several times, at least a half dozen times already, to kind of talk about the Hakes and everything. But we've always talked about you as an art collector and just overall collector, because you have collected a lot of things over the years. So give us your origin story, as far as anything related to comics or collectibles, that you started with early on, and how did you get to where you are today?
Sure. And it did start early on. I think it started at birth. Many people say you're born a collector, and if you aren't a collector, it's hard to explain why we do what we do and get someone else to collect the way that we do. So at a very young age, my mother instilled in me to keep the boxes, keep the packaging, not play with the toys, but play with them and keep them in nice condition and save everything. So I was a born collector and just started saving and never throwing anything away. And so I was born in 1969. By the mid 70s, I started to accumulate comic books, and many were just kind of hand-me-downs from friends or older kids that I knew that were done with them. And So I always had a stack of comics around, and two issues that stand out from that stack was Avengers 160, which is Perez, and Teen Titans 48. Both came out in 1977. So, but again, I was collecting these, but just random here and there, and not going to. At that time, we didn't have a comic book store. We had a place called Bookland, which was sort of a precursor to Borders and Barnes and Noble, and they had a huge wall of comics.
Where'd
So,
you grow up?
York, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
born and raised. Was the home of Hake's auctions for many years, on and off, but more so on than off. Um, so I like comic books. Um, at that age, I really got into music as well, but again, not necessarily buying physical format. The radio was always on. My parents listened to music. I was very much into Kiss, and my aunt, who was a few years older, got me into Kiss. But I looked at Kiss as a comic book, as superheroes. I couldn't even tell you their music at that time when I'm 7, 8 years old. I just liked the visual, right? So we flash forward to 1980, and I'm in Bookland, and I see New Teen Titans #1, and something just clicked that I said, not only do I want this, I want to come back every month and collect every issue. And I mentioned earlier the Avengers and the Teen Titans comics, just because it's sort of like osmosis. I mean, here, flash forward a few years, and I'm now have Perez writing this comic, and I've remembered his art from Avengers. Or I'm sorry, drawing this comic, remembered his art from Avengers. And what really drew me in was the story. And this may be an evil thing to say here on Comic Art Fans, but I always gravitated towards the writer over the artist. I was just a story person. Same with me in music. I'm very much a lyric person. So not that I didn't enjoy the art, and not that I didn't appreciate artists, but the story is what got me. And just from the start of #1 of Teen Titans, it snowballed. And then I started picking up other titles and getting those every month. And we're talking at a point in comics where the miniseries and the maxi series were coming about. And so as a collector now, here I could complete the series in 4 months or 6 months or 12 months or whatever it was. So that appealed to me. So the comic collection just kept growing and growing. And then with it, I started going to flea markets and so forth, looking for comics, but I would see a Batman lunchbox or a Fantastic Four game. And so I started acquiring merchandise related to superheroes. Uh, and also in 1980, I got my first physical format of music, and that was AC/DC's Back in Black came out that year. And I had friends talking about it. I didn't even know who they are, what they sounded like, but my friends were talking about it. So I bought it. It was also just like New Teen Titans, right place, right time, and I connected with it. And for the next couple of years, all I listened to was AC/DC. Acquired every cassette. Again, collecting without even really knowing I was collecting. Um, so anyway, back to the comic books. It finally got to a point where we finally had a comic book store in York, and my collecting for comics snowballed from there, and branched off into everything. You have guys say the Marvel guys, DC guys, independent, whatever. I was an anything guy, and I became that way in music too. It just um, was always diverse in my interests and my tastes. That's also deadly when you're a collector, because all of a sudden you can see in this room, you start to collect everything, right? So um, back to me as a child, at 4 years old, I moved into what would become the home I lived in throughout my childhood before I moved out as an adult. And the next door neighbor happened to be a very serious collector: tokens, lead soldiers, mason jars. And we had a connected house. We became friends even as a child. I would go in and it was like I was walking through a museum, right? So again, this is instilling in me the life of a collector. And because I then got into comic books and things, what would happen every Sunday night is all the local collectors that knew each other would meet at this person's house. His name was Charlie Ziegler, and talk about their adventures of the day of the week, what they acquired. And many times this was out on the front porch, and I would sit there and just absorb all of this. And so I was accepted into this community as a kid when everyone else was an adult and very serious about collecting all types of things. One of those people was Deke Stegemeyer, who was actually the first employee that Ted hired at Hake's in 1978. But before that even happened, he had been a dealer at co-ops and flea markets and toy shows and things, and was looking for help. And at this point now, I'm 12, 13 years old. We've formed this bond through these collector meetings. And he says, why don't you start helping me at my co-op booth and so on and so forth. And I did. And I got very much into the whole life then of now I'm seeing all of these different types of items, not just comic books, but everything. And he says, I need some help in the shipping department at Hake's. Why don't you give it a trial? So at 15, on a day off from school, I did. It worked out. Ted said, when you turn 16, come in and work for us. So the day after I turned 16, I started at Hake's Auctions in 1985. And we flash forward now 38 years later, I go from shipping room assistant to president of the company. And again, that shows us this room. We're kind of getting off the art part of it, but the trajectory is, I started to absorb all this stuff. So if anyone that knows a Hake's auction or catalog, especially more so in the past and even now, we have so many different categories that we offer. And I found something I liked in everything. So I just started collecting anything that caught my eye. Art didn't come until much later, because I was very much a dimensional person outside of the comic books. I like figures and so on and so forth. So, so that's sort of, the path that I led to get me to the point of a collector. And then it's, aside from a hobby, it's been my one and only vocation. So that's the origin in a nutshell, or maybe a long-winded one.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm enthralled. I mean, I don't think I have ever met anybody that's worked in one place their entire life, Alex. I mean,
well, so there's a sidebar.
Right. Now, you must have delivered newspapers or something, or you couldn't have been buying.
One time I had a friend that went on vacation. I did it for him one time and I hated it. So no. Here's my two side jobs.
Okay.
Both under the table. One was at a comic book store and one was at a record store. So in essence, no, same thing, different location. This is what it's always been is collectibles. Yeah.
That's again, I mean, I'm floored. I mean, I think that's, again, why haven't we had this conversation before, Alex? I mean, you've been on numerous times, but I had no idea that, I thought you just fell into this job in the last couple of years or something.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, definitely not. No, I've fallen many times at the job, but not into the job. No. And it's, again, I've just always loved, I have a genuine passion for all this stuff. So even there are things that come across my desk, Roy Rogers. I didn't grow up on Roy Rogers at Weston, but it could be something we've never had or I've never seen. And wow, this is interesting. So, it's always been that no matter what we've offered, as many things as I collect, there are plenty of things I don't collect, but I can appreciate it. And it's important to me to also to learn about the items. Not only from a personal standpoint, but a business standpoint. We're very much, when we do cataloging, we want to make sure that it is properly represented and presented. And I want anybody who is a collector to get an item and feel the way I would if I got the item, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to and along the way, we've done so many price guides, and I help with Jebby's Entertainment Museum, and there's many other side projects I've been involved with directly related with Hakes, but all related to collectibles in different aspects. I love when I'm interviewed to cover a subject, or there's a price guide that's being worked on, not so much these days as in the past with a book, but I love working on the price guides and doing the research. And, so it's more than just acquiring an item to me. It is definitely a way of life. And even more so in my collecting of music. And thank you for having me on. As people will look, I have a very modest art collection, and I'll explain why. But music is what really took off. As much as I got into comics and other things, I'm up to 6,000 records, 6,000 CDs, 8 tracks reel to reel, 12,000 plus albums. That's where most of my time and energy and passion go into. And it's also something that if I have things in a closet or tucked away, I'm now starting to sell the stuff because what's the point? So I'm glad I have an office that I do that I can hang the art on the wall. I'm glad that I have a room that I can have my records and access them and play them. And I think it's very important that, as passionate as I am about collecting, I don't want to keep acquiring things and not be able to view them. I think that's
Mhm.
the worst thing. And I encountered that a lot with collectors who consign stuff with us. And they'll say, I'm giving this to you because it's been in a closet for 20 years. I think it's very important that we, and as you do too, have an office, see the stuff every day. That's the enjoyment that we can get out of these collectibles is we, at least me, I connect with every piece in this office for some reason. Uh, Childhood memory. Uh, it's just something visually I like. Um, so on and so forth. So it's very much as I said before, it's a way of life. This isn't. It's a hobby and it's a business and a job. First and foremost, it's a way of life for me to um, have collectibles.
Well, you certainly have a lifetime in the collectible hobby. So, when did you ascend to the current position that you're in now? How long have you been
Uh,
president?
so started as shipping assistant, moved to cataloger, and at that point, then I was doing photography and descriptions, and it was much different business model than it is today. Hakes for many many years, there weren't a lot of collectible auction houses. I should say, I told my story. Hake started in 1967, so as long as I've been here, Hakes has been around longer than that, 56 years. America's first collectibles auction house. So, um, so as far as art goes, I've always been surrounded by that too, because of this job, and I liked it, but I don't know. I just didn't buy much for many many years. It was probably the late '90s, and certainly by about 2000 that I got into art. I couldn't even tell you what the first piece I bought was, but at that time I was a heavy eBay person, and I'm collecting all these different things. I mean, I also have a huge underdog collection because that's a cartoon I remember from a child. I collect all kind of different objects that are related to dice. So 1930s ashtrays and cane tops and all kind of things. I collect 8 balls and pool billiard related stuff, vintage things, sports memorabilia.
How big is your house?
Not big enough. But I
I
will
just
say, for those that do business with Hakes and know my wife Heather Winter, she's the operations manager and also a collector, and so she knew we were high school friends. We got together after high school. Now I've been married 32 years, and before we even got together, though, she knew this is what I did, and so it was never an issue, and that's a good thing because sometimes this can end badly for couples because one person spends way too much on things like this. Um, so she got it. I have the luxury of buying whatever I want within my means, and that was also part of the art thing. Disposable income was not always what it what it is, right? So I did, and I collected so many different things. So there's diversification is one of the reasons why I didn't go heavy on art because there were times where I liked things better than art, or it was more accessible. Um, but so I'm using eBay and I'm doing all these keywords, and I would be on there for hours at night, and I just started looking up artists that I did like and characters that I liked. And it's my when we start going through my pieces of art, I sort of did it in a way that I think makes sense for uh, how I collect. And I'll go into where some of those pieces came from. But so
Mhm.
around 2000 is when I really started to buy things. Did that for a couple years. Then going back heavy into the music, buying a piece here or two. Um, but I'd say more so in the last 5 years or so, I really started to concentrate on pieces that I really have always wanted, artists I've always wanted, characters I've always wanted. But again, that being rational and not getting too carried away. I've been in this business long enough to know if you miss out on this piece, guess what's coming? Another one. You know, maybe if you have a chance to buy Starry Night, you do it because it's going to be hard to top Starry Night.
Mhm.
Otherwise, there's just always something to buy, and also being at Hakes every week I see new things, including new art. So for an auction cycle, 3-4 months, I've got a new art gallery. That stuff goes away and more comes. So I never felt a great need to own a ton of art, because it was I was always around it, and it was always rotating, and it was in my possession for a short period of time. Again, that's sort of changed in the last few years, where I'm thinking now, you know what, there were some pieces that I liked, and maybe I should have bought, and let's put a little bit more time and energy into the art collection. Certainly you helped too. I mean, the time that I spent on your site for work turned into spending even more time for me personally, just because I enjoy it. And one thing I will say, as we talk about collecting, I say it's a way of life and a passion. What is so great, I think, about CAF is the positivity. I post a thing, in seconds, I got people saying, "Wow, this is great. This is wonderful. What a, not I've seen better art. I've seen a better page." I find that a lot on my music sites. Everyone wants to say this album's horrible, and why is this person doing this? And who needs that? To get these comments from people that I don't know, and they owe me nothing, and for them to say, "Wow, what a great piece," to me, that's fantastic, and that's what this is all about. And I wish more people got that and didn't get so caught up in the value of things. And none of that means anything. Some of my favorite pieces are my least valuable,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm okay with that because I love them. And that's important, I think, in collecting. I think many of us have lost sight on that. The prices have risen to astronomical amounts these days on comics and cards and art. And that's, look, my business is to make as much as I can for the consignor. So I'm not downplaying values of things. I'm just saying that personally, to me as a collector, I certainly keep that in mind at times.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
But more important thing is, hey, I've got this now hanging on the wall, and every day I'm going to look at it, and every day I'm going to say I love it.
It's I think, well, I do feel like most collectors feel that way. Like Dino just mentioned, when that's nice becomes my precious. Yeah, there's a point in time where you can become a little bit overtly possessive about things and thinking about them a little bit differently. But I mean, I'm kind of curious. You mentioned that at one point in time, I'm assuming, so it's late 80s, early 90s, whenever you were actually doing some of the photography for Hakes. I mean, any artworks come to mind that passed through your hands back during that kind of time period, or were you not photographing the art? Were you just more or less photographing the toys or other things?
Photographing everything but the pinback buttons. That was always Ted's specialty, and he did that portion. But there was a time where I was doing all the rest of the photography, a couple thousand items in auction, and doing descriptions for much of that. But back then, I can't say there was anything that really stuck out, because, again, I wasn't really into the art so much. And back then we were doing, while we had comic book art here and there, we saw much more strip art because that played into the comic character stuff. So Crazy Cats and Schultz and so on and so forth. No, it's more recent things like the Frazetta Blazing Combat cover we sold, in an Action Comics cover with Superman as JFK, and some of those pieces now stick out much more because I'm just more in tune to the art market than I once was. And it's also a blur. I mean, we're doing 3 catalogs a year now of about 2,000 items, and then our online only auctions. And in the past, and I sort of got off track when I was talking about the business model. So in the 70s and 80s into the 90s, much of what we sold, Ted bought. There were not a lot of collectible only auction houses, or they were just getting into certain things. So Ted would buy, and we would then put that inventory into the auctions. And when Steve Jeppy bought the company, at that time, auctions were much more about consignments and so forth in 2004. So then the business model changed, and then it flipped to consignments. So back then, when it was mostly Ted's inventory, like I said, it was really much more about strip art and so forth. And then the comic art came later, as we also got more into comic books over the years. Obviously, as Steve Jeppy owns an auction company, he's into comic books, he's into art, and so he had some influence over what we offered as well then.
So it sounds like Ted was almost curating his own auctions because he was buying and owning things, but it makes a lot of sense, right? He's probably looking at things and thinking that's going to make this auction even better. Buying out a collector or something like that, and just finding ways to put together a really interesting curated auction. Whereas today, you never know what you're going to get with taking consignments and those sorts of things. So that's interesting. But I think I asked you about 15 minutes later, 15 minutes earlier, when did you get to this position? I mean, so where did you?
I got sidetracked. Okay, so
that's okay.
So shipping assistant to cataloger, that's where I got sidetracked.
Yeah.
Then merchandise manager, then production manager, then general manager after Steve owned the company for a number of years, and then president maybe 5-6 years ago. I think that's sort of the trajectory of that. I sort of always knew I wanted to do this, but in the 80s, there weren't reality TV shows, and collectibles weren't ubiquitous as they are now. It was, I don't want to say it was underground, but I had to explain when someone said, "What do you do?" Well, I work for an auction house. Oh, you sell furniture and Van Gogh? No, we sell Tom Mix and Buster Brown. What? And so I'd always carry a catalog with me and explain all this, and that's when it was. I was still in high school, and then I went to business school. My parents didn't get this business again because it wasn't what it was now, and they didn't understand that it could become a real vocation. And so I went to business school for accounting because I liked that in high school. I was good at it. They seemed to think that was an acceptable job, and so 2 semesters of that, and I said, I can't do this anymore. This is to me, and Ted wanted me full time. So a little bit of an issue with my parents. I then moved out, but flash forward, we came to an understanding years later. They saw what it was and how invested I was in it. And now, if you say I work for a collectibles auction house, well, everybody knows what you're talking about. But again, in the late 80s, it was a head scratcher, and I had to explain everything. And so that's how I sort of just never left and worked my way up, and here we are today.
Wow, were they not close to the neighbor next door whose porch you were hanging out with every?
Oh, absolutely, no, 100% they were, and he liked him and other people, but outside of Deke, who got me my job at Hake's, none of them had this as an occupation. So that was the thing.
I get it.
It was just
so he's
kind of
familiar with it, but he couldn't imagine you making a career out of.
It was always this real job kind of thing, and like I said, understandable under the circumstances, and only wanted the best for me. And I certainly didn't know at that time the industry was going to be what it was or what it is. I just knew I liked what I was doing, and that was important to me. And I didn't like crunchy numbers and wearing a tie. I grew out of that very, very fast.
Marcus has been making fun of me all night. He says no one knew Bill's career choice 20 years ago as a meme maker. But so I assume at some point in time you were on the other side of the table, sitting in that other Corinthian leather chair, before you got moved into here.
Too many times. That's why I now call it payback.
Exactly. Now, that's awesome. I mean, honestly, a great story. I had no idea. I mean, that's so it's good we got you on the channel so we could talk about that. That's cool. I mean, since we're not going to talk about the music side of your collecting, I'm just kind of curious, what is the most important piece of music memorabilia in your collection? Because I know I saw George Hodge was in here earlier, and he's a big he's in the music, and I'm sure at least he will be very interested to know what that item is.
We'll talk about one piece that's art/music coming up.
Okay.
But the best piece for me is it's pretty simple. It's Miles Davis, who is one of my favorite musicians of all time. I actually share a birthday with him. And I have an album he did called Sketches of Spain, which is one of my favorite albums of his, in which he not only signed it, he did it because he was an artist, a very, Picasso-esque.
Right. I've read a bit about him.
And he did a little head sketch of him blowing a trumpet. So it is absolutely positively unique. Miles autographs on albums are actually rare, but there's nothing else like this out there. So that tops the 12,000 plus pieces. But my number one musician, and that's why the office is purple, is Prince. There's a Purple Rain movie poster hanging on my wall. So that's those are Hendrix. I have a just quickly. We'll do my music.
Yeah, please.
Holy,
No, I really
Holy
want to.
Trinity. So the Holy Trinity is Miles Davis is the Father, Prince is the Son, Jimi Hendrix is the Holy Spirit. So those are my three favorite. Those are what I concentrate the most on in my collection of albums and foreign releases and test pressings and so on and so forth. And there's not too many minutes in the day where I don't have music playing. That's been a constant since, again, even before I discovered AC/DC with the radio. But when I discovered AC/DC, then it was full on. I must be surrounded by decibels all day long.
So do you or did you get out to a lot of shows in your day?
Yeah, tons. And going back to my good friend Deke, who passed away a couple of years ago, he took me because I'm starting to go at shows when I was 15, and didn't get a license until I was 18. So he was the chauffeur, would take myself, my friends. Heather at that time was going to concerts. So yes, hundreds and hundreds of concerts. I was just at one the other day. Pandemic sort of threw a monkey wrench into a lot of that, but no, I still enjoy seeing bands play live, artists play live, 100%.
Awesome. David Wetzel wants to know what your favorite new band is.
Favorite new band. I just got an album the other day in the mail by a band called Bell Witch, which is a really heavy, doomy band. I mean, think Black Sabbath, but even slowed down more. And they're only, I don't know, maybe 5 years old. So just to throw one out. But I again, don't derail me on music or this part, man. But if you like doom metal, check out Bell Witch.
All right, Bell Witch. Making a mental note for that later. Well, that's cool. That's totally cool. Now I know why the room's purple. That wasn't why mine was purple, but I've always been a fan of Prince, though, so cool. Can't really argue with that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to see him 5 times, and actually once he did an after show. So I'm in a small club of holds 500 people, and so that was pretty incredible.
Best I can say is I went to see a Prince cover band when I was in Vegas about 10 years ago. It wasn't bad, but yeah. I'm sure it wasn't quite the same.
Not the same. No, of the hundreds and hundreds of concerts I've been to and all the bands that did, there was no one like him, period. Not live. Nope.
Wow. And Dino mentioned Purple Connections, Purple Haze, Purple Rain, and Violet. There you go.
I like that. Very good, Dino.
All right. Well, so why don't we get back on the comic art rail? So you don't remember the first piece that you picked up, but obviously at some point, you're handling more of it, at Hake's and whatnot. So, but you think your first art purchase would have been from eBay, or do you think it would have been something that you saw come through the offices at Hake's?
I remember getting, and I don't have it on my gallery yet because I just found it. Again, I'm going through a closet this weekend and found it. I have a Dave Cockrum preliminary cover for Power Man and Iron Fist. I forget who did the actual cover. He didn't do the cover. He just did this outline. And I know I bought that at Hake's early on just because I was a Power Man and Iron Fist collector. So that actually might have been, and that probably would have been early 90s. That could have been the first piece of art I bought. But as we get through my list, it really was more that 2000 year when I hit eBay up, and those pieces I remember a lot more, why I got them, how I got them. And then we actually will end the show tonight with the newest piece, which actually just arrived today. So I may not be able to tell you exactly where I start, but I can tell you where I ended at the moment. But that is to be continued.
Very cool. Well, hey, a Dave Cockrum cover prelim is a pretty good place to start. No matter what. I mean, he didn't do a lot of, or he was just a cover prelim guy, and then somebody else doing the finishes. But he did a fair number. I mean, they're all pretty nice. I mean,
yeah,
that's awesome. Well, you'll have to get that scanned and put it in your CAF gallery.
Yeah, that's why I was going through the closet. I'm going to try and get some last minute stuff up, and then I ran out of time. You got to understand. Again, this is all I do, and I love it. Is it also sometimes I get tired of it. So I'm doing this all day long, cataloging, and then I go home and I use Discogs for my records, so everything is cataloged there. And now I'm cataloging my art. So it's like at some point I just like to take a break and stare out the window, but
I do understand.
but a very short period. And next thing you know, I'm thinking, oh no, wait, I got to list this. Oh, I got it. So it's they're very minor breaks, and that's the one thing I like about my music collection is we don't really do a lot of records here. Uh, so even when I'm doing a similar thing with my record collection, it feels different. And I
Mhm.
also play every record. I don't have any seal records. That's nonsense to me. Every record I have, I shouldn't say that. I maybe have 3 sealed records out of 6,000, but my records are accessible and I can play it any second. And that's it. That's an important aspect of that collection because it gives me uh, not only again look at the going with really on the art topic. There were many a record I bought because of the artwork, especially as a kid. You go in the record store and see an Iron Maiden cover, and you're a heavy metal kid. How do you not buy something like that, right?
Right.
So I bought a lot of bad music that way too. But as I'm playing the record, I'm staring at the album cover. So art, music, it all merges.
No, makes perfect sense to me now. NSN Art makes a good point. It says Alex needs to have more than one folder in his CAF gallery. The more art you put up there, the better it is to kind of segment it, right? I mean, however you want to organize it. By character or by type or whatever. You never know. It's but that's a good word of advice. Just as your CAF gallery grows, it gets harder and harder to organize it
Yeah.
later.
No, it's all the work in progress, and I'll do that. I'm just glad that you sort of pushed me in that direction because I think it might even been a year ago that I started, and I only got 50 some pieces up in a year. But no, and now that I have it going, it's not going to stop until I list my last piece, and by the time I list my last piece, I've already gonna have bought another one, right? So,
hmm Some number one Marvel fan wanted to know if do you have a favorite Drew Struzan album cover?
no,
Okay, there you go.
no.
All right, so we now know that the Cochran piece was probably or nearabouts your first
Yep.
piece of original art you picked up. So now that you're in the eBay era of picking up artwork. I mean, what were your tastes at that point? I mean, were you looking at was it back to favorite characters like the Power Man Iron Fist thing, or were you picking up art just based on who the artist was?
Who the artist was and the character, um, and that became more who the artist was at that point over character because I was able to interact with artists who were listing stuff on eBay. And again, I don't know how much they do that now, but we'll talk about the pieces as we move on. But Daniel Brereton, Guy Davis, these are two people that I bought art directly from, and I was a fanboy, so it was great to talk to them. I mean, email and speak to them personally, but that kind of personal connection I really liked. And I don't know how much of that happens now. And so many people get stuff at conventions now and sketches and things, and right away they put it on eBay and want to sell it. And back then it was different. Back then, it was new for the artists. It was new for the collectors, and I sort of stumbled across both of them. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk about more as we get to those pieces. But those two artists distinctly stand out as my early eBay purchases. And then also I'm a cat person. I'm a cat collector. We have Heather and I both have all kind of different cat collectibles, but we also, as pets, love cats and have cats. So Catwoman was a big character for both of us. I mean, and I got her in the comics as well. So my comic, I was voracious from Teen Titans #1, 1980 to about 87. When I went to business school, time and money became an issue, and I stopped cold turkey. And I said, I just can't do this. And in 1992, I went into a local comic book shop with a friend because he wanted to go in. I just tagged along. And that was when the Spider-Man issue was out that had the hologram on the cover. And to me, that was mind blowing because I didn't see anything like that in the 80s. And Image had just started too. And I saw Spawn and things and just thought, wow, this is different than what I read. And I picked up a couple issues. Well, as I am, I'm either cold turkey or I'm all in. Well, now I was all in. So from 92 until now, I'm back into comics big time. Vertigo had started just after that. Again, as a person who loves the writing, nothing was better than Vertigo. And I backtracked all the way back to Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, which is the origin of everything that was dark was deep, was heady, came out of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, in my opinion. And that's why I'm a big Swamp Thing fan, and you'll see some of the Swamp Thing art. So I just got into comics in such a big way. And I think that is what then, the more I got into comics in the second phase of reading, is what led me to get into collecting the artwork and the artists and so forth. Still didn't really do the conventions or anything. I'm not sure why. I just didn't. So I didn't meet artists that way. But, you know, like I said, I would spend hours and hours on eBay, and it was nice to connect with them that way. I got some really unique pieces, some one-of-a-kind pieces, especially the Guy Davis, which we'll talk about, is just, to me, was an incredible work in progress, because I contacted I think his eBay handle or whatever, it was Guy Davis, so I assumed that's who it was, right? There was no secret code name, and I said to him, "Are you the Guy Davis?" And he said, "Yeah," and that's how this whole piece of art came about. So, and then I bought some published pages, though. Again, back on the cat, so I would Google Catwoman, because I'm looking for three-dimensional things, vintage collectibles, right? And then art starts popping up very sparsely, but for Ballant, who I loved his run on Catwoman. So I was able to get a couple published pages that way. So it was a mix of commissions, published pieces, just sketches. And that was that little pocket. And then again, I drifted away. I got into other things. And then the last 5 years, now I've really concentrated heavy on published pages of issues that I liked, or characters that I really liked, or things that were just fairly unique. So that while I say there's always going to be another piece that you can buy, but I have some pieces that there really is no other piece like that, or a page like that. So that, to me, it makes them extra special. And also some of the content too of characters that I like that somebody else may not even care about. But I have pages that maybe aren't visually dynamic. They aren't this big splash page with the full team, but there's a single B-list character that I've always liked, and I'm happy to have a page like that with a character other people might scratch their head at why do you have that? But again, it goes back to what means something to me.
Right. Do you have any underdog art?
I do. And I toy with, it was tough to cut down.
You didn't put any in the set.
No, it was on the list, and I kept it more about, because I'm trying to stay in the lane of comic art fans. I know sometimes when we talk about toys and things, when we do the Hake's preview, people comment, "What is this, a toy show?" So I'm trying to straddle the line here. But yes, I have one cover for a comic book, a gold key. I have one complete, the pages for one complete issue. And the best piece I have cover to cover the little golden book, which is all fully painted art. And that I have the cover hanging on my wall. The pages I don't, because there's 24 pages. But yeah, and then I have a specialty piece by Chad Grothkoff, who was one of the people who worked on the original 1964 cartoon. So yes, I do have underdog art.
Well, I had a feeling. Just, if it's in your blood, right? And if that was, one of your favorite, characters to collect, I would have found it odd that you didn't have any art.
It sort of came about. I was collecting superhero stuff, and I was collecting comic books, and in the 80s, he's still around, but there's a guy named Danny Fuchs who billed himself as the world's foremost Superman collector. So all the trade publications, you would see his ads, and he called himself that, and wanted Superman contact me. And so I'm at a flea market. I remember it like it was yesterday. Out back, there's an Underdog Pepsi glass on someone's table. $1. Done. And I say to my friend Deke, I'm going to be the world's foremost Underdog collector, as a joke, thinking there's two pieces? Well, I'm about 400 items in. I mean, from the time it started in 1964 till now, it's always been in syndication. There were actually more products made in the 70s than in the 60s, and there's still stuff being made today. So there's a thing that I got obsessed with. Right? Collectors are obsessive by nature. Well, that is the case of Underdog, where I sort of did it as a joke, and the next thing, the joke's on me, because I have a whole room full of Underdog stuff now.
That is, I was going to say how an obsession starts. I mean, I think everyone goes through phases like that, or they get, pegged as a certain collector, and you end up with a bunch of those, and you just get kind of stuck in a groove. And that's how many boxes and attics get filled up over time, right? I mean, it's Brian Bailey mentions that Danny Fuchs, I did business with him. I mean, the name sounds familiar, but that's That's funny. So you are probably one of the most prolific collectors of underdog stuff.
Yeah.
That's nothing wrong with that. Wow. Oh, Jason Harris says we've got 61 people watching and only 29 likes. How's that even possible, everybody? Come on, there should be at least 50 likes out there. You're all sitting here watching us on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up. Let's make this work. Well, okay, cool. So outside of Underdog, though, any and Catwoman, what other characters are your primary interests before we go on and look at some artwork?
That's one thing. And working in the comic book store like I did and having so many friends, you hear all these debates and who's your favorite character and who will win in this fight and all this kind of nonsense. I don't have a favorite character. I don't have a favorite team. I can't say I have a favorite artist or even writer. I just like the world of comics so much. But there are characters that I do like. So anyone from the Titans over the years, from the Teen Titans, New Teen Titans, so forth. Catwoman, Joker, both are two I really like. Or many characters from the Batman universe, Vertigo universe, again, Swamp Thing and Sandman and Shade the Changing Man, and so those are some I sort of concentrate on. Swamp Thing, I have more art of that character than anything else, and that is, if I had to pick one comic that's all I could ever have, it would be Swamp Thing. But it's such a great lineage. I mean, from Wrights and up to the current thing that Perkins just did. I mean, there's so many different versions and eras and so forth of Swamp Thing. It's just such to me a great character. So I would say that's my favorite, and that's why I have more Swamp Thing than anything.
Yeah, Robert says he detects a DC theme going there, and
it is, but I like X-Men, I like Avengers, and I do more now omnibus and collected edition than I do getting things off the rack on a weekly basis. But when I did, I kind of lean more towards DC solo heroes and Marvel teams.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sort of some of my favorites, as I just said, are DC characters. But I could rattle off a bunch of Marvel characters I like just as much as anything. So
we mentioned Power Man earlier. So
Iron Fist and Power Man for sure. Yep.
All right. Well, why don't we dive into the piece? And I will tell you, one of the pieces I couldn't download. I think you turned it off on your CAF gallery. So when I went to get it today, that was the third piece, the Lopez Titans page. So
okay. All right. Yeah. I could have. Look, I'm lucky I'm able to do what I do. As you know, I'm not a tech person. For God's sake, I play records. So I do my best. I'll look into that.
No problem. All right. Well, Marcus says no Perez Titans. So let's see. What was the first piece we were going to look at tonight? Perez Titans. So tell me a bit about this one.
So this is fairly recent. I've had my eye on a lot of Perez Titans art over the years. I really would like a cover. We got to save for that. Perez covers are not cheap, and rightly so. So this, I was just happy to get to finally have a Perez Titans page. Cyborg is a character I've always loved. This is from an issue written by Marv Wolfman. So you have the two creators. I've always liked the dynamic of Cyborg's family in his life throughout the run of the comic. I also like that I don't know of another page where Cyborg is going to get slapped by somebody and not retaliate. So this was just I definitely want a full team page. I love a splash page, again, a cover. This is a good start for me, though. One of my favorite Titans characters, and then just what I think is a pretty endearing page with he and his grandmother.
No, well, you got to start somewhere, right? I mean, that's so this is a good starting page for you. Whose inks? Do you know?
I put that in my DeCarlo.
All right, yeah. Cool. Nope, not bad at all. I mean, a lot of people need like a starter piece, right? Especially when Perez, like you said, Perez Titans not very cheap. They don't, the good pages don't come up too often. When they come up in private hands, they typically sell privately. They don't, and so you never publicly get to see like really early Perez Titans on the market. So because there's just Perez. And Wolfman on Titans, it just made me a DC reader. And I didn't know anything about it when I was reading it. It was just the covers were great. I pretty much bought at that time pretty much anything that Perez drew, so I was kind of forced to get into it, and it's it's like Burn X-Men or Cockrum X-Men. It's so many people grew up on those books. It's tough. It's a seller's
and that
market.
really was that era of X-Men. That was really not long after I got into Titans. I started picking up X-Men at that time, early '80s. Both were incredible. Yes, art, story, and then again, imagine my surprise when X-Men and New Teen Titans team up for that one issue. I was like, I couldn't sleep at night till I was able to get that in my hand. So that was big. That was a big deal. Yeah,
it was
two major events in my life: the Bigfoot episode of $6 Million Man, and that issue of Titans and X-Men. Yeah,
I mean, I'm with you on both those points. I mean, I was thrilled to have Simonson tackling that that crossover. I mean, it was amazing. The art was great, story was great. It was pretty much everything you could have ever hoped for. And I once owned a page from the book. Foolishly sold that. I think I bought it for like $500 and sold it for about $700, thinking I made out really good. And now I don't think I've seen another page on the market probably in 20 years. So live and learn. Let's see here. So next up, keeping with the Perez and Titans theme. Now, you didn't get this one for yourself because your name isn't Roger, but tell me about how you got this one.
So again, not that long ago at auction, and I'm thrilled with it. And you can look at it and say, that's Perez, or this isn't his GLA Avengers crossover cover, right? Of that dynamic team and such precise. It's more of a kind of loose, rough sketch. But what is important is that date, 1/8/84. So that is 6 months, give or take, from when Nightwing debuted in Tales of Teen Titans number 44. So who knew about that character at that time? Nobody. This is not a convention sketch because the character was sort of under wraps. I tried to get some answers. Unfortunately, this was after Perez had passed. I went to Wolfman. Of course, he knew nothing about it because he had nothing to do with this. But my thought is it's too Roger. Well, who could Roger be? Well, there was a Roger Slipher, who was an editor at DC at that time, who would have known of this character debuting many, many months down the road. Could it be him? I'd like to say yes, because that would sort of make sense of how this character was signed and dated that many months before to somebody who would know about it. So all speculation on my part. But what is great is that this mimics, and I have that in the. I think I have that in the gallery. The page from issue number 44, there is an image of Nightwing descending the staircase. So this is an interpretation of that, a riff on that. I'm assuming this came after, and maybe Roger saw that page, or someone saw that page and said, I like that. It was a split panel with Nightwing and Jericho. I like that, and that's why George did this. Again, I don't think we'll ever really know. All I know is this is among the first drawn images of Nightwing by George Perez, unless someone out there can tell me differently. And I if anybody knows, I'd love to hear. But no matter what, it is again special to me because of my love of the Titans, and I just love the transition of when he became Nightwing. So early and historic is what I say about this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have no idea. T. Gleason mentions probably Roger Whittaker. Brian Bailey mentioned Stern. You never know. But that's pretty darn cool. And if anybody has an answer to that, I should say Alex's CAF gallery is linked in the show description. So anybody that might want to offer a suggestion and shoot him an email, you can do that through his CAF gallery if you're watching tonight or anytime in the future, of course. So that's sweet. And I mean, it's you can tell. I mean, it's definitely that period for Perez, right? I mean, the style's there. It's a great image. It really is.
Yeah. I'm just so glad the date is on there, because if it isn't, it's still cool. But I really like the fact that this is just so early in the character's history.
All right. Well, we missed this next page here. Is that Lopez Titans page? But the next one we've got is another Perez piece, and it's a doozy. I love this page.
So here's another character that I like, and I probably shouldn't. I've always thought Craven was just a great character design, costume, all of that. Being an animal lover and a cat person, I shouldn't, right? Because this is a big game hunter. But again, this isn't reality. This is a comic book. So, and I also growing up in the '70s, so that Marvel era, Power Man and Iron Fist, and the horror comics and all. I just loved all of that, and so that plays into this with Werewolf by Night and with Craven. It's also early Perez, so again, not his super tight. This is 1980s jam pieces. I liked it as sort of early, um, and that you have these two characters that uh, he didn't draw very often, right? There's only a handful of pages while both of these characters on them by Perez. And yeah,
Wow.
my bad, Man Wolf, yes, not Werewolf by Night, Man Wolf.
Man Wolf, yes. Yes, and the dialogue is it's a little cheesy, but the art's incredible. I mean, what more could you ask for from an early Perez page? I mean, love that first panel, cracking the tree like that. To quell your vile bestiality, wonk. I mean, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's fantastic. So, is this something that you've gotten recently, or is it a?
This was again in my last 5 year phase of buying. Yes.
Okay. Oh no, this is gorgeous. Congrats on having that one. That's a really great page. Now we're going to move into the a couple Brereton pieces, and and I would not have any idea that you were a Brereton fan, but you told me when I was doing the show with Dan that you were a big fan. So now we get to see a couple pieces of his in your collection.
Yeah. So I did these as a A and B because they're companion pieces. So again, this I remember distinctly. So 2000, I find Vampirella is another character I love and that I collect, and I have merchandise from 1969 on up. I have the early fan club button and membership card, and then the blood drive stuff they did in the '90s, and everything in between. And that was a character that I searched for on eBay, and as well as Catwoman. So at the same time on eBay is a Catwoman piece and a Vampirella piece by Brereton. Now I did not know that his name wasn't in the eBay handle. At least I don't remember. I didn't know they were his, but I bid on both, and there was a reserve on both, and I didn't win them. And then he contacted me and said, "Hey, I'm Dan. These are my pieces, but this is my Vampirella," and we worked out a deal. I think the reserve might have been 100, and then I got this for $75 if I remember. And he said, "I'll offer you the Vampirella for 75." So I took it. I said, "Well, what about the Catwoman?" Because I was the underbidder on that. And he got back and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I went to the second underbidder. I didn't see you. If you want a Catwoman, I'll do that for the same price." And I said, "Okay." The Vampirella, which is yet to be put up on my gallery, is nice, but it's just kind of a quick figure in a white background.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Catwoman was. Well, the Catwoman that he did for me, and that is in my gallery, looks like this. Full realized background with color. I mean, I was blown away. I was stunned at how beautiful it was. And I'm one of those people that I like black and white art, and I like color too. I couldn't decide between the two. I love painted work, Brereton and Alex Ross and so forth. So I got those in the mail, and I immediately emailed him and said, "I can't thank you enough. This Catwoman is stunning." And that's when we formed a little bit of a relationship. Now, he probably doesn't remember this because he's talked to a million people since then, but he was so nice and so genuine. And I started buying pairs. And I think it was 75 for a single, and he would do a pair for 125. And so I said, okay. So I started getting pairs. I did a Swamp Thing and a Death next. And then I did Halloween Girl and Gunwitch from his Nocturnals. And then it was getting towards Christmas, and I was a big Nightmare Before Christmas collector. And I said, "Hey, how about a Jack and Sally? And he says, right up my alley. Sure. And so I get a box in the mail that he actually drew Jack Skellington with a Sharpie on and said, Happy Holidays. I said, well, that's cool. And so I open it up and I pull out a portrait of Jack. Nice portrait, but white background. Portrait of Sally. Again, nice portrait, white background. And then these two that you just showed. And so I said, what? You know, and there's a note in it that says, surprise, again, happy holidays. So I ordered two. And because I'd ordered these others, he sent four, including these two, which I think are just stunning. The way that he utilizes color. I mean, so these are two of my very favorite pieces, just because of all that transpired. And then after that, we sort of drifted. He got busy. I sort of moved on, and unfortunately, I never got more commissions from him. That's why I was thrilled to see the show that you did, and unfortunately, I didn't. My button didn't hit, or my finger didn't hit the button quick enough. So I am hoping that he comes back, and I've got a chance to get another piece now. But at least I have the ones that I do, including the Jack and Sally here.
Yeah, they're gorgeous, and yeah, there is a show. Yeah, I don't have the date in front of me. I probably easily could here. Where was my calendar? But I know it's in August when I've got Dan back on. Let's see here. Put it on your calendar. It's August 12th.
Okay.
Dan Berkmani, and I'm sure he's going to do the same thing. Plenty of custom pieces just for that.
Okay.
Once I start getting a few, I'll tease him. But yeah, no, I love Dan's work. I always have.
Yeah.
I think I first got something from him around 2005 or so. But yeah, he's fantastic and a very nice, generous, guy. You know, I think he's awesome. I think a lot of people feel that same way. And hey, I saw a comment from Dino. Where was that? He thinks that that Creatures on the Loose 33 page could be Perez's first published art. So it makes that page even a little more special if that's true. I don't.
I know it's research. I knew it was early, but yeah, that again, great. I don't. That's a nice bonus, but even if it's the last page he did, I mean, it just for me to have him on Craven was when I went a little heavier on than others, because there's a case where there isn't that much out there, and if I don't get this one, maybe I don't see another. So.
No, I get it. No, it's a great page. I love early Perez. I mean, even because he did artwork in some of the Marvel magazines. It was just fun stuff. I mean, at that time he was still pretty new, but you could tell how talented he was.
Sure.
Now let's see here. I know you mentioned this artist earlier as well, Mr. Guy Davis. So what do you it was interesting. I mean, eBay in the early days, of course, you could communicate more freely with the sellers, and there was a lot more freedoms back then than there are today. So, I mean, tell me about this piece and I guess more of your interactions with him early on in eBay.
So again, a Vertigo title, and one that I absolutely loved. And the era it was set in, in the late 30s and then into the 40s, and Guy Davis just nailed it. I mean, he wasn't the only artist on the series, but he did most of the art, more than others. And while I like some of the other artists that worked on it as well, I just thought Guy Davis was it on this. And so again, I don't remember the piece that I saw that he had posted, and it could have been a sketch or could have been a page. But anyway, I reached out to him and said, "Are you the Guy Davis?" He said, "Yeah, I'm the Guy Davis." And I gushed over his work and said how much I love Sandman and would you do a commission? And he said, "Sure. What do you have in mind?" And I said, "Sandman Mystery Theater," even though I liked, Baker Street and the side. I liked his earlier independent work, but I just loved this title so much, and so did Heather. So I said that, Wesley is such a great character. Diane is a great character. How about something that would look like a portrait that was taken at the time? And so he got back, and again, I just added that to the gallery today. He got back to me with 3 very rough outlines. And this one stood out because this had the gas mask, it had the gun, he had the doll, which played a part in the story, tucked there in his arm. But I'm talking about really super small and rough sketches. So I thought, here's the one I want, and I didn't know what to expect when it was finished. and it shows up and it's 11 by 17 and it's super detailed and there's zipatone on it. I mean, it's a stunning piece. It looks like a cover piece or a pinup piece. And I remember this distinctly. This back in 2000. This was $75. And you just can't believe if it doesn't do it justice here on the screen when you see it in person, the detail. And so this is where I say this is among my top pieces. It's worth more than $75 now, but not, unfortunately not a great deal more for as wonderful an artist as he is, and that is meaningless to me because it is priceless. This is Heather loves this as much as I. This is just a very special piece with all of those factors involved. The fact that the interaction with him and we love the characters in the story and it just is it's one of the pieces that I absolutely look at every day in my office.
It's framed and on the wall.
100%.
Well, it should be. I mean, like you said, you gave him the concept of a period photograph, and bam, that's exactly what he delivered. I mean, it's fantastic.
And I will say this: this was when I posted because I want to make sure I got the 18 pieces up I wanted to talk about. Again, I'll fill in the rest down the road. But as soon as I posted this, comments, likes, I mean, this got more reaction than some other pieces I thought that would have, and that's great. It also shows the community of, who's out there and who they like. And Guy Davis is just such a fan favorite for those that know his work. It's not as prolific as I would like to have seen in comics, but again, his work on Samurai Mystery Theater just incredible. And I have a second piece too. There was a promotional piece he did for one of the 4-part story arcs. So I have 2 Guy Davis pieces, but this is the one for me because it was done for me.
Yeah, I mean that's incredibly special. I mean, yeah, sometimes commission experiences don't go so well, but I mean, you've had well, that one's fantastic. And the cool thing was he actually gave you a few choices, and you chose wisely. That's for sure.
Well, and the other 2 were cool. One was a much more of a full body thing, but it was too much at a distance. The other one was close up like this, but didn't have the gas mask, didn't have the doll. Any of them would have been fine, but I think I picked the right one, especially the way that he took it from that little sketch to the fully realized piece.
Right. Well, slick. And next artist, different style, but James O'Barr, of course, Crow illustration here. I mean, I love James's stuff.
I do too, and it's one of those artist-writer combos that nailed it for this story. There's some artists that I don't like their writing as much as their art. We'll just leave it at that. But for this story, again, it played into just such a darkness, but you could tell the pain and anguish he was going through when he wrote this, and the art reflects that, the story reflects that, and it was another series that both Heather and I read and just absolutely loved from the second we read it. Every time a new trade or collected edition or deluxe edition came out, we would buy them, and this was early, again, 2000 or so. It popped up on eBay. I can't remember if it came directly from him or his rep at the time. I do remember someone reaching out to me and saying that they saw it on one of the DVD releases of the film, the original film with Brandon Lee. And there was like a extras package, and there was a screenshot of this. If that's true and anybody knows where that is in this DVD, I'd love to see it. I maybe that was just a story. Bottom line, though, this is a special piece to me because it's the 2 main characters. It's their cat, again, a cat person. And I think it just kind of captures the mood of that series in this. And then another one framed in my office, and I look at it every day and love it.
Wow, it's a fantastic piece. It really is. I mean, I've got one piece by James as well, but not a Crow piece, unfortunately. But yeah, I just always loved the style. I mean, it's so moody. The weight of his line. The way he inks. It's he's a very special artist. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, Mysteries Eagle, like you said, it definitely eye-catching art, logo, bar style. I mean, I was just looking at my CAF. I was like, shoot, I haven't even posted it yet. I've got to get off the off my rear end here and get some art posted to my CAF gallery. So don't feel bad, Alex.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I've posted anything all year. Probably.
Yeah, but I mean, you're like me. There's not enough time in the day. So
There is
yeah,
not, and I'm on CAF a lot. I actually have scanned a lot of my art because when I get it, if I get a stack going, I will scan like everything, and then before I put it permanently into a portfolio and set it aside properly. But I just haven't uploaded anything. But hey, Troy Pierce mentioned that he just got logged in, but it was enjoyed your story on how you advanced through Hakes, the American dream.
thank you, Troy. So let me be blunt. Some days it's a nightmare. It's not all. I'm telling you, everyone that walks into this building or into my office, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This would be so much fun. I'd love to work. I work here for free. I say, give me a week. This can be a grind. Not every as much as I praise the collectors on here and the camaraderie and the positivity. There's plenty of negativity in this business and with consigners and with bidders and I've got a home office to report to, and so that isn't the fun part. The fun part is when we can connect like this and really enjoy each other's collections and so forth. So that makes it all worthwhile. But there are times where that chair is used for different people.
Well, not many people outside of you and I, obviously. I mean, get to have our office space filled with the things we love, right? I mean, it just doesn't happen too often. And again, if for you anybody joining late, this is Alex's office space. This is not his home. Just imagine what his home might look like. But do you have purple walls in any of the rooms at the house? No, just here.
No purple walls, just here.
All right.
Yeah. No, and I've too many cats at home that if had I tried to do this from there, they would be jumping up on me. You'd hear no, even though I shut the door, they'd be banging on the door. So I came into the office to get away from all that. So only distraction you have is a changing video screen behind me.
Nothing wrong with that. All right, let's see. Gorgeous piece here. I mean, you mentioned that Sandman's one of your more important characters in that you enjoy out there. So was this a commission?
Yeah, it was a commission, but not for me. I bought it from the person that had it commissioned. I have two pieces by Joe Thompson. One is just Delirium on her own, and then this piece. The first one I bought off eBay from this person who at that time was getting things done by her and was upgrading. So the other Delirium became expendable. And then several months later, he put this up for sale because he had something else that was in the works. And I don't remember if it was buy it now at that point or if he offered me, he might have offered it to me privately. I think about the other Delirium off of eBay, and then he offered this to me privately, and I jumped at it because, yes, I love Sandman. Again, Vertigo universe to me is important as the Swamp Thing run of Alan Moore. Just the writing was stellar, and the artwork, which a number of different artists throughout that run of Sandman brought their own unique style to it. Everyone was, to me, perfect for that storyline. None more so than Joe Thompson, and nobody can draw Delirium in that just whimsical way that she can. So this is another one that's very special, just because visually I could just stare at it all day and not get tired of it.
Yeah, it's work.
You there? You good?
And so is it
You're freezing up on my end.
Love my
Bill is frozen.
17
That is true.
by 12.
So okay. Samuel says I'm Bill now, so I'm Bill.
What's the size of that piece?
Are we good now?
All right.
All right. So it's just me and are you back now? No.
Fine. All right, Alex, you're. I've run my Memorex.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm supposed
Couldn't
to
tell
keep
if Bill
talking.
was
Okay.
frozen or just being.
What does anybody want to know?
So,
Are there any questions for me?
I am speechless. I'm here.
The next auction? Yeah. Next auction goes online July 3rd, closes July 25th and 26th. I think you will be blown away by some of the artwork we have. Also, some of the comic books we just got in Amazing Spider-Man #1 9.6. So lots of really cool stuff. It will all many of the pieces will be on display at the San Diego Comic Con if anyone's going to be there. Or like I said, if you're going to Heroes Con, Sean will have a book on the table with probably 30 pieces of art in the auction. So there'll be a good preview there. What's my favorite record album? I can't say I have a favorite album. I have a favorite song. "When Doves Cry" by Prince is easy. That's my favorite song. I don't have a single favorite album. I have many, and it depends on the day and time. When you got 12,000 albums, it's hard to pick one. Now it's just me on the screen. We can see you. Can't hear you. Government Muse is, I like Government Muse. I never heard their version. I would check that out. And yes, wow, Spidey 9.6. It's pretty spectacular.
All right, how's this?
Now we can hear you and see
you.
I took over though. It's good.
Well, I don't know what the heck was going on there. I just switched over to my laptop and it seems to be fine.
We're good. I kept everyone entertained. Hopefully, I got some good questions and yes, the Pink Floyd The Wall is great. I prefer Animals, but I love Pink Floyd.
Of course, I can't hear anything, so you guys can hear me and I can't hear anything. Man, what a mess this night has become. Let's see. I want to try to get the other thing to work. Well, sorry about this, everybody. I stepped into the house and the girls are having fun on the internet, and they said nothing's wrong over there. Just bad for me. Thanks a lot, Marcus. Well, I can't hear Alex. He's probably laughing at your comments. Let's see here. Enter back over there. Can't song and dance my way through this one. Let's see. I'm going to drop over.
Just me again, guys. There we go.
Is this any better?
We can hear you. Just me again.
Yeah, I am thinking. This
What artist would I like to meet?
So, hey, Alex, not if you can hear me. That's a favorite. Okay. For whatever reason, even when I'm at, it's like we're having a total meltdown here, apparently, because it doesn't work on my desktop. But over here on my laptop where it's working, my audio isn't working. So I can't hear a damn thing you're saying. So it doesn't help me. I'm not going to be able to finish this interview if I can't hear what you're saying. And this thing
Yeah.
is like, it's like we're having like one problem after another here. At least I'm live and you can hear me. But we can't do an interview like this, Alex.
I
This is
got it.
terrible. We got another hour to go here. I got more art to show. Get a hard line. I'm not Wi-Fi to the internet. That's why it's confusing. I've never had this problem before. The kids are playing their games fine in the house. I don't get it. That's very peculiar. And why my
No one comes into my
audio
office
isn't
and cleans.
working off
I do that.
of this other device is also strange.
I don't trust anybody touching my stuff.
Can't make it work right, guys. Cannot make it work right. Use your AirPods, Bill. I don't have any with my Mac. I don't understand it. Everything should be working fine on it audio-wise, and it's just not. Speaker's fine, or my mic is okay. Reboot your modem or router. I can't do that, Jason. If I do, the only thing I will try to do, just because I can, I will go ahead and restart the PC because it'll restart pretty quickly, and then we'll see if we can join back in and make it work right so I can actually hear Alex and conduct a proper interview. But Alex, you were doing very good on your own. Tell us when the next Hake's auction is going to be. What kind of stuff have you already got in there that you haven't shown to anybody yet that you can talk about here? And I'll drop myself out momentarily, and you take it from here for a few minutes.
So we sort of covered that, right? There's a fantastic Green Lantern page by Neil Adams. Howard Shaken, there's a page from Star Wars #1. I believe the only time a page from the first issue has come to auction. Hard to remember. We're at the final stages of getting the catalog laid out into the printer. So it's sort of lots of moving parts, but like I said, a great comic art section. We already have a date booked in the middle of July, I believe, that we'll do a comic art fan show on the auction. Sean will be on it, Kelly will be on it, and we'll show off and Todd will probably be on it. We'll show off the artwork then. Like I said, Heroes Con coming up, San Diego Comic Con, we'll have previews, but I think everyone will be impressed. And if you're into other things too, the killer Star Wars section, lots of toys, lots of graded action figures. One of our best sports card sections, if you collect graded cards, early baseball, early 1900s to the 50s, just a little bit of everything. What is your number one? What comic art related? A Perez Titans cover. I'll get one day. Movie prop division. Yeah, we'd love to get more into movie props. I mean, if you saw what we did with the Captain America shield, pretty impressive price, and it's an area that we definitely would like to grow for sure. Yes, I have art at the office and at home. Probably my more favorite pieces are at the office just because I would see them more, and it's a good conversation piece when I have people come in. But there's art at home. There's records here. Not everything fits at home, so some stuff is in the office just because. No, thank you for the comment on the catalogs. Yeah, we do our best to have a very diverse catalog. We have so many different collectors in different categories, from political to sports to movie to comic art and so forth, that we really take our time and put that catalog together. We have a good printer that we work with, and so thank you. It's a lot of work that goes into those catalogs. That's why we have some online auctions as well of things that may be of lesser value, and don't warrant a catalog, because the catalog is not cheap. So the catalog usually gets the A material. Star Wars page #1 shaken. Yes. Yeah. So I forget what page number it is, but it's C-3PO and Luke Skywalker. Pretty nice content.
Am I live now?
You are.
Holy mackerel! What the heck was up with that? I don't know. I guess the PC decided to flake out. That was pretty weird.
Bill's no problem, and I think I've been elected to kind of take over for you in the future as well. So,
well, hey, Alex, whenever you've got free time and you want to fill in for me,
hour 25 and 26 of the day, I'll make it for CAF. Yeah.
Well, that was weird. I mean, because every once in a while, you don't get to see it, but up in the upper left-hand corner, there's a thing that kind of tells you how your bandwidth connection is, and it dropped down to 0. But I mean, it's plugged into the internet, same router that the laptop was plugged into, but for whatever dumb reason, over on the laptop, the audio wasn't working, and it's I was striking out everywhere. But anyways, hey, we're fine. We're back.
Cool.
Yes, the hippie stranger on the left is back. Yes, indeed. It was my cache. It could have been, but I rebooted everything this morning too. So it's not like I've been sitting here running the lot today. But anyways, we can get back to the interview. We were talking about Jill Thompson just recently, and I think we got done with that one.
Yeah, well, you asked the size. It's 6 by 10. It's actually.
That was the last thing I said, wasn't it?
Yeah. In my gallery, I said it's on board. I didn't go into whole explanation. What it really is it's on the inside cover of a Sandman hardcover. They commissioned it there, and then he snapped the cover off. So technically it's on board, but it's on a hardcover. Yeah.
Very nice. All right, now moving over to a very classic illustrator. Got a piece here by Mr. Hildebrandt.
So this was another eBay purchase of that time period of 2000 or so. I was searching for the Joker, and this popped up, and I was familiar with Greg and Tim Hildebrandt and their work to a small extent. I know they did the Lord of the Rings, and I was never a Lord of the Rings person, but I'm a Joker person. When I saw this, and again, I like some things on the dark side, right? I like the Crow and Vertigo, and so a martini glass with an eyeball and the look on the Joker's face, which was modeled by Greg's wife Jean. I said I have to have this. So this was back then. Probably spent more on this than any other piece of art at that time. And I keep saying this, but another of my favorites. I just think it's stunning. The pencil work is so fantastic. I have it framed, as you can see, a little bit of a green border and then a purple metallic frame. So it's another piece that really stands out in my office.
Well, it's great. And I think even in the photograph you sent that we used for the show graphic, you could see that on the wall, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Well, yeah, shaken not stirred, says Rick Welch. Very, very true. But no, I've always liked Greg's stuff. I got a few pieces by him as well. Just nice style. Very nice guy. Have you ever had a chance to meet him?
Nice. Yeah. And now that leads into the next piece. But yes, he and Jean are two of the sweetest, best people. I actually got to meet them in person at one show and interacted with them on a consignment basis, as well as the piece that's coming up. So yeah, couldn't be two nicer people.
All right, so here we go. The piece in question, the Mob Rules cover. So this must tie to your music, fandom, I guess, right?
It does. So this is a combination of three worlds, and that is my music collection, my autograph collection, and my art collection. So this was purchased after Greg had been a consignor, and I formed a relationship again with he and Jean, and I bought this signed by the lineup on this album, which is when Ronnie James Dio was a vocalist who took over for Ozzy, and an album that I love, one of the all-time classic heavy metal albums, and I've always wanted it signed by this lineup with Dio. So I get it, and I also knew that it had Hildebrandt art. I didn't know until after I bought it the whole history of it, and that this art was actually done many years before the album. And they as in Black Sabbath and the management went to Greg to get this to be used as the album cover. And there's another whole story involved in that of how that became, but it did. And many people, musicians into music and into this band, don't realize that, and it looks like it would be made for a Black Sabbath album, right? Dark and ominous, but it wasn't. So I sent it to him after I talked to Gene and said, I'd love for Greg to sign it, and maybe if he wanted to do a remark, whatever you want, just let me know. And I get it back a couple weeks later, and I open it up, and it's not a gatefold. I actually have it opened up here because it's framed open. I open up, and the front cover is what is staring me in the face, and I see Greg signed it down in the bottom right, and I said, well, okay, that's cool, but I'm looking for a remark, and I don't see one. And I turn it over, and if you know that album cover, it is just the wall. So the two figures that mimic the creatures on the front, the devil head, and all the red blood, that is all added by Greg. So when I saw that, I was, again, one of those blown away moments. I just couldn't believe how incredible it was. We're now lining up my love of art and the album and the autographs, and I contacted him right away and said, this is insane, and thank you so much for what he wanted. And Gene said, you're great to us, and it's good working with you, and here it is. So this is one of those pieces that's you asked about my favorite, and I said Miles Davis. This is probably number 2 because it is absolutely one of a kind. I've recently talked to Jean, and she said that she's had other people ask Greg to remark the album, and he said he won't do it. They recently sold the original album cover art for $100,000. And it is, again, to me, the top 10 all-time heavy metal album covers. So all of that just adds up to, how can I not love this piece with all the backstory and my love of music and of autographs and everything. So this is one that hangs directly behind me in the office, and 100% gets commented on by everybody that comes in.
That's awesome. And, if you're sitting in that other chair, you might feel a little nervous seeing that image up behind you.
Also rides behind me. And then and directly above it is a Black Sabbath Paranoid signed inside the gatefold by the original lineup with Ozzy. And then directly below it is a framed concept sketch of one of those creatures that Greg did before he did this fully realized piece.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the relationship we have with them, it just shows up and open up, and they say, hope you like this. And I said, I contacted him, what are you talking about? And Gene was going through a garage, looking through some bins, and found some sketches and things, that long lost and forgotten about. And immediately, because knowing my love of Mob Rules, sent this to me. So, and that is also, I think I have that maybe I didn't put that. No, I didn't put that in my gallery yet. So that's to come. But so again, I have this kind of triptych of Black Sabbath and the album cover and Greg Hildebrandt's art, and it's a pretty impressive portion of my wall behind me.
Awesome. Well, we've actually got a couple music oriented pieces coming up here next. First, and they're both by John Romita Sr., of course. But Silver Surfer on a keyboard. I don't think anybody's probably even seen this image before.
I know this, and I knew this as a kid because I have the album, right? So it's one of those crazy 70s Marvel albums, and Power did some things that were spoken word and adaptations of comic books, but this is all Marvel based music, pretty hokey. And then on Spider-Man's on the front, in fact, Peter Parker's on the front cover, looking into a mirror that reflects Spider-Man, right? And again, I have this on the back cover on the gallery so you can see. The back cover then is all the so-called musicians that played on this, which includes Silver Surfer and Captain America and Black Panther. And they're all, each one is playing a different instrument. This one I just think is so cool because I love Silver Surfer. And, here we have the meeting of the boards, surfboard and keyboards. It's just, this is sort of that classic 70s. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, some of the merchandise and things were as cool as it was also kind of funny and hokey. And this album certainly was that, and the artwork reflects it. And I'm fortunate enough to have two pieces of the I don't know if it's 8 or 10 images on the back cover. Yeah, here's another one, equally as goofy as Silver Surfer, right? Conan and the Barbarians playing violins and cellos, but again, I urge people to look at my gallery, or look this up online, and see all the artwork that Ramita did of all these characters. Fantastic Four is there. It's just it's just, to me, really cool. So album artwork in general, uh, it's not that easy to come by, and so many album covers were photos or cut and paste and things. The fact that this had all of these different pieces of art, I'd love to track all of them down. I know where there are a couple others. I know Mr. Rutan has one that I keep bugging him to sell me, and he has yet to do. But at least for now, I have 2 of these pieces from this album.
Well, at least you know where a few of the other pieces are. I mean, that's half the battle.
Yeah, and so again, people ask, what are you looking for, and which one you want list. Anything from this album cover is absolutely on my I want list. I know it's a pipe dream to probably think I'll ever have them all, but 2 is good for now.
Very apropos, Marcus. No, those are awesome. Totally. I don't think. So, what was the record like that came with that?
I haven't listened to it for years. It's not great. I think it's just goofy songs based on the characters. There's a number of things like this. There's actually a band called Icarus, who in the early '70s did an album called World of Marvel, and each song was based on a Marvel character. They had Marvel characters on the album cover. They never got the rights. It got pulled. It's a very rare psych record from that time period. And then into the '70s, they just did lots of this. Marvel and DC, different spoken word records, different instrumental records, and some other records, and based on characters. It was just a right time period for doing things like this. And to me, though, this was one of the coolest, just because of how much artwork.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a front cover art or big piece on the front and back. And really, when you look at the back cover, all around the border are all of these different Marvel characters in the studio playing a bass and a guitar and singing, and so on and so forth. So pretty cool. Marvel,
I think you had I was in your CAF gallery yesterday. You have some extra images, maybe, right? Of like,
no, definitely. I think I put the front and back, but definitely the back cover, where you can see all of these small pieces of art that appear. Yeah, everyone should check that out because it's really cool.
Slick. Now we can take a look and check off a Catwoman page right here.
Yeah, so I only was able to get 3 pages back then, and you don't see Belent publish Catwoman pages often. At least I don't. I would assume that he has all of it, and that's why you don't see it. If anybody knows, I'd love to hear the reason why. I think all 3 pages I got were from the inker. 1 pages, and 2. I think I have 2. No, you know what? I think this is the only one I have posted right now. So another page is 4 panels of the Penguin. All you see is Catwoman's hand, but they're just great images of the Penguin. But Belent's art, I just think, is fantastic, and especially on this run. And then I have another page of Catwoman, but Selena Kyle, and she's feeding her cat. She's opening a can of cat food. So again, it goes in with my love of cats. This one, though, I just think is so great because it's the quintessential Two-Face. You see the close-up, you see a scarred face, and he's flipping the coin, and it lands scarred side up. So while doesn't have Catwoman, it's still Belent, his Catwoman run, and I just think it's a killer page.
No, it definitely is. I mean, there's, like Marcus said, he keeps a lot of it. You don't see too much of it on the market. There's probably more sketches out there by him than there are published pages. So, that's awesome. And you have a couple other pages that you haven't added to your cafe, you say?
Yep. Yeah, they'll be coming up shortly. Yeah.
Yeah, Stanley mentions that Kat Taka would love these. Kat's a big fan of Jim's. So, but who isn't, right? I mean, he's an excellent artist.
Great stuff.
Now we've got a Pope Batman page.
So Paul Pope is at the top of my list of favorites as a comic book person, and that is both writer and artist. And I think he's equally talented at both. I also love because it love him. But at one point, I saw a tagline that and I think he came up with this. I could be wrong about that, but it was called the Jim Morrison of comic books, and I'm not quite sure what that means. But I love the doors. I love his artwork, and I just think it's cool. And I've loved his stuff, his earlier stuff, his independent stuff, the couple things he did for Vertigo, Heavy Liquid and 100%, I thought were fantastic. And then he did this Turning Point storyline, the 5th and final issue of this miniseries that revolved around Commissioner Gordon and Batman. And it's not in the traditional Pope style, which it has some Pope-isms. It doesn't look like his Batman 100, what was 100 years or Batman Year 100. That's pretty in that Pope style.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think this is such a fantastic page in that it's a solid page, but it says everything, right? You've got Batman and Gordon in every panel. You've got the bat signal. It's just, and it's big. Paul Pope, I don't know if he does it for everything, but the pages I've seen have been that 2-up kind of size. And then in the margins as well, you can see he's penciled additional details. So this was a piece that I got in circa 1990, about $175 at auction. And again, I'm not a person that is worried about values in this and that, but this is definitely a piece that has grown in value probably more than anything else that I own. Paul Pope art is so hot right now and bringing serious prices at auction, but I have not seen another page from this issue. Again, Batman Year 100 I've seen, and some other things he's done, some other covers, but not from this issue. And it's a story that I love. Batman is a character I like. Paul Pope is a favorite of mine. So this takes the center of the wall opposite my desk, so I'm facing it all day long. I love it.
Yeah, that's not a bad piece of art to stare at most of the day. And it's not intimidating.
That one isn't. No, but the people that's sitting in that chair, that's behind them, so they don't.
It's to get you in the right frame of mind when you have to lay on a whipping on them,
Sure.
Just get, put your Batman mask on and put them in their place for a while. Now, I bet this artwork is not hanging in the office anyway, but you tell me if I'm wrong.
It is hanging in the office.
It's hanging in the office. All right. Well, is it in front of you, or is it?
Yes, it's in the wall in front of me. It's to the left and up towards the ceiling of Paul Pope. It's it's sort of high up, so if a little kid comes in, they can't stare right at it. But I love Linsner. One thing that I didn't mention when I mentioned all the different things I collect, I've always been a fan of pinups, Varga, Petty, Olivia. So I have a pinup collection of vintage calendars and card decks and things of that nature. And Linsner is right there as a top pinup artist, with some added imagery that you don't see elsewhere. There's no Petty calendar from the 40s or 50s with a skull behind the pinup, right? It'd be cool if there was, but no, this I love. I love his use of color, just the way he drew Dawn, another person that I think can write and draw equally. And I've looked at a lot of Linsner pages over the years. I've bid on some, didn't win them. This is one, though, that I was happy to get. It's my only Linsner at the moment, and if it's the only one I ever have, I can live with it for all the reasons I mentioned, and because the outfit is purple and it plays into my whole purple room and Prince obsession and everything else.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I mean, there definitely isn't. I've done 2 sales, or I've done three sales with Joe, and we've never had a Dawn piece on it at all, which is weird. You think that even we've done a few. He's done a few commission style pieces at least for the first show, and yeah, he's just never. It's funny. I'd want more. If he drew all Dawn pieces and put them in there, they'd sell immediately. Without question.
Sure.
So I'll have to talk to him about that. I'm sure we'll probably do another show before the end of the year, but his last show was fantastic.
Yeah, I missed the last one. I saw the one before that. I had my finger on the trigger for a couple things, and one actually Todd bought, so it stayed in the family. But yeah, his stuff is just fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. I had to ship all the stuff that didn't sell back, but it was fun to have it in the offices for a while.
Yeah.
You're right, Brian. Who doesn't love redheads? That's very true. Let's see here, and Mike Royer, Vampirella pinup. This is an early piece.
Very early, so early he doesn't even remember it because I asked him at one of the Little Giant shows. He was thrilled to see it, but had no recollection. But yeah, Vampirella started in '69. He worked on some of the early issues. This is dated '70. So again, it looks like it could be a convention piece, but that was such a new character. I don't know. Possibly it was even done for publication and worn and just was never used. It's a nice, fully realized piece. I love the pose, I love the expression. So this was in the last 5 years kind of purchase that I've started to add some Vampirella pieces, and very happy to get this just because of the early nature of it.
No, it's really nice. I love Mike's signature as well too.
Yeah. It's funny because you would think that whoever does what, artists remember everything they drew, and musicians remember everything they record, and it's just not the case. And here's a piece that I just thought was fantastic and would strike a chord, and it did, but for the different reason, a reason of wow, this is great, but I don't remember drawing it, versus oh yeah, this was done for whatever. So it was cool just to have that interaction.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Is this something you picked up at auction, or you just found it on
Auction? Yep.
Auction? Yeah. Well, cool.
Competing auction that won't be named, but yes, at auction.
I understand. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Now we're moving over to some Swamp Thing, or not Swamp Thing yet. Okay, we got the What If page first. I thought this page is awesome, but is it really that tanned? I guess
that's the way. Yeah, that's the way it looks, and not aged that way, just that way. Yeah, that's the appearance of it. And here's one that it's Gil Kane, and Gil Kane is a legend, and that had no bearing on why I wanted this. I'm a fan of the Watcher. I also like Spider-Man, and this page has it all, right? I mean, it's just a dynamic looking full page of the Watcher, then the details, and Spidey swinging. And so here's one that I went aggressive on, and I don't know who I was bidding against and why they wanted it as much as I do. Were they a Spidey fan, a Gil Kane fan, a Watcher fan? I don't know. I'm glad I ended up with it, because that's another one that, how many pages did Gil Kane draw with Watcher and Spider-Man both on it? Not many.
Yeah, it is an awesome page. And yeah, now Swamp Thing's coming next, everybody. Don't worry. But like Marcus just said, it was framed at one point. That's why you have the why it's not tanned on the outside border. Somebody had probably matted it and put it in a frame and left it out in the sun a little too long. But that's okay. It's a great page. It's like, it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's you could always clean it up, but why, right? I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, and then there's those bright white spots too. So that's what's, and that's maybe that was white out. I'm not sure. But yeah, so it when you see it in person, it doesn't look like it needs anything done to it.
Right.
It actually sort of, the appearance is okay. I can live with the way it is.
No, well, the thing is, I think it's good that people get to see pages like this. It should remind people, that they have to take care of the art better, right? I mean, I think having examples of these, because it doesn't devalue the art at all. I mean, the art is the art. But it's kind of like a good lesson to see it. But I mean, it's a great page, and Marcus has mentioned it often enough that you seem to have a thing for collars, because everybody's got a big collar. Vampirella, Nightwing, and now we've got the Watcher. But who didn't love the Watcher?
Yeah. I wouldn't read too much into the collar thing.
There you go. Well, Marcus likes, he was teasing me about the chair, earlier. So he focuses on something and gets me. But now we can show some Swamp Thing pieces, and this first one is by Rick Veitch, right? It's I love this page. This is awesome. I mean, when I remember seeing this one in print, I always just thought it was cool. I love when people kind of play with the overall panel layout to do something interesting like this.
And that's why I went for it, and paid more for this than any other piece of art. This is another recent purchase as I start to get in to getting Swamp Thing art more. And I love to have a page from every artist, and writes in, obviously would like. That's one of my top future purchases, I hope. But again, I love the Alan Moore run and Veitch, who then took over writing it as well. But this page is unique, right? So while I have other pages, Swamp Thing in action, fighting, this, that, and the other, you can see something like that in every iteration of Swamp Thing from Bronze Age on up.
Mm-hmm.
There is no other page like this. There never will be. Most likely never be another page like this. Yeah, it's taking each panel on its own and focusing on that, kind of interesting. But then when you look at it, I mean, it is essentially a splash page of this face made up of components of the planet that played the majority of the storyline of this issue. So yeah, it's one of those that as you see it from far away, all you see is Swamp Thing's face, and then as you get up closer, you look at all these different panels and the way that it was done. I think it's spectacular. But obviously the favorite Swamp Thing page that I own, Alfredo inked it. Again, important person in the annals of Swamp Thing, so it's a great 1-2 punch of penciler, inker, and also coming from an Alan Moore storyline. So yeah, the page that I think is superb.
Is it 11 by 17 or Macau
Yeah.
one? Know if it was oversized.
11 by 17. Yeah, 11 by 17. Unfortunately, not oversized. Look, it would be even more impressive oversized.
It might have cost you a little bit more.
Would have paid it.
All right. This is a nice page too.
So this goes strictly by character, and again, I wouldn't have cared who did the drawing. So Swamp Thing being one of my favorite books, and Heather's as well, and holds a special place because the first two cats we ever owned were named Lady Jane and Tefe. So Tefe being Swamp Thing and Abby's daughter, and Lady Jane here in this storyline created by Nancy Collins. So to have all four of those characters on one page, this is an important part of that storyline. It's the last page of that issue. It means a lot to me, just content wise, but it is a beautiful page as well. But here's one where it's 100% about the characters on that page, and that's what was important. Not to take anything away from Scott Eaton's work, fantastic artist, and worked on many Marvel and DC titles. But I don't care who would have drawn this page. I wanted it for those characters.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous work of art. I'll definitely. I wish I had a better scan of it. So but it's slick. It's really nice.
And that's another one that's in this last 5-year phase of me trying to get swamped. I got some great Perkins pages yet that I have to put up, and a few others, and some specialty pieces. I actually have a Joe Thompson Swamp Thing color piece that she did. So there'll be much more Swamp Thing to come, not only that I have now, but hopefully that I purchase in the future.
Do you have the rights in yet?
No. And I had a chance at some that didn't have the content. The price was right, but didn't have the content. I really want the content, so I'm going to pay more, but I'm going to get more, and it'll happen one day. I mean, that's the great thing about collecting is that you never want it to end, right? We always want to keep searching and finding something, and so the rights and page that I will one day own is out there, and when it happens, it happens.
Makes sense. Well, we have one more piece to look at, and it's a little off the beaten path, but Powerpuff Girl cover.
So like I said, the most recent piece, I just got this at auction. It just arrived today. Heather and I, again, this kind of joint passion that we have, which I say is a good thing, because otherwise, if I say I want to buy a Powerpuff Girls original art cover to my wife, who isn't into this world, she's going to say, "What time do we have a divorce settlement?" Right? So Heather and I just love this cartoon from when it started. Uh, we bought a lot of the merchandise when it came out. We bought the comic books, and you until recently did not see many covers for the DC series. A few have popped up at auction. I've gone after a couple and didn't win them, and then this shows up. Heather and I both love it. I have a connection to the to an octopus, as I have in fact I have an octopus necklace on now, so it's an animal that I like and have since a kid, so that ties in with it. I'm an old school video game guy. I started with the Atari 2600, so you have video games in this. It just had everything lined up, and if all three Powerpuff Girls kind of front and center with a villain. I'd love to have a cover with Mojo Jojo, or one of the more well known villains, and they're out there maybe one day. But for now, this is a cover that I just think is fantastic, and also, again, you say, is it off the beaten path? It reflects my diversity, right? I'm not pigeonholed. At any moment I could buy any object for any reason. A curse and a blessing as a collector.
Well, there are worse curses to have. I have to tell you, I almost own a Powerpuff Girl cover with Mojo Jojo on it. Did you know that?
No.
Here, I'll swing back around and I'll show you. I saw Phil Moy at San Diego Comic-Con back in like 04, maybe. No, it was probably my first one. It's probably 03. And he had a couple Powerpuff Girl covers. My kids loved it.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's as close as it gets. But the covers are always fun, right? Because it's always like, in this case, two of them are, unaware, and the one is, and then yours, the one was unaware, and the other two are battling. And then I actually have another one too. This one's in the bathroom. People were joking with me about what I have in, the bathroom.
I love that. That's a great one too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Isn't that fantastic? I mean, it's awesome. No, both framed. I bought them for the kids, and they're both in my room. Mm-hmm. Remember, my wife was like, Maureen said she thought they were too scary for the kids. And I'm like, no, they're perfect. Cool. And they watch the cartoons. They love the cartoons. But then, she's like, she didn't want them hanging up in the kids' bedrooms. But, it is what it is. So I get to see them every day.
Yeah. Well, if you ever want to consign them, I can hook you up with a good deal at an auction house.
Yeah, well, I've seen what they go for now. I mean, when I bought them from Phil, I mean, they were probably, I swear I bought a third one, which is weird. I feel like I spent like $450, so like $150 a piece, and I've seen them going for like $1,500 now. So that's
and the last one I saw was a great one with Mojo Jojo, and I think that was well into the 3,000 range.
Oh wow! I did
think
see
close
that
to
one.
4. I think close to 4 with the premium. But yes,
definitely.
But easily in the 1,000 to 2,000 range now for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I know the one you're talking about. That was pretty cool. I was like, wow, that's way better than mine.
No, yours are great. Yours are great.
Thank you very much. Well, so was yours, Alex.
Thank you.
Well, let's see. Trying to make sure I didn't miss anything in the chat. Troy says, old collector advice: collect widely, and you'll always have something to collect. That's true. That's true. Very, very, very true. I mean, and we've had an embarrassment of riches, I think, in the last 3 years, as far as having so much art on the market that I think it's exposed us to a lot of different artists and periods from artists that we might not have had a lot of art for sale from before. So, yeah, it's been a boon for us collectors. The last 3 years. It's cost us a lot more, over that time period. But man, I mean, I can't think of a better era for art collecting than the last 3 years. It's been great. I mean, like just with the Powerpuff Girl covers, how they just had. When have you seen one? I mean, really, hardly at all. And then boom, now you get to see some more. I mean, it's definitely awesome. Wajamada says, got a Samurai Jack page. Yeah, I'd love to get one of those sometimes. I mean, those are great.
Mhm.
So anything that you have coming in the mail that you want to tell us about now, or is it just something you're going to show up in your CAF gallery anytime soon?
No, I'm up to date with purchases right now. Yeah, and if I can't even say that I'm watching anything, I've been so consumed with this, getting this next auction done and to the catalog to the printer. I've only had a remote eye on art elsewhere,
Mhm.
and there's some interesting pieces coming up that I have an interest in our auction. So there'll be a new purchase soon, but as of now, everything is in my hands. Just not on my gallery yet.
Understood. So when is the next Takes auction?
So
Actually,
it goes online July 3rd and it closes July 25th,
oh,
26th.
that's right.
It's the week after San Diego Comic Con. So perfect time if you want to see what we have and you're going to be at San Diego. Kelly is going to be there with Jason, our video game guy, and Kevin Poling from Diamond International Galleries. We've got 3-man crew this time at the booth. We're going to have comics. We're going to have art of a Boba Fett prototype. We've got Kelly's working on that right now. So we're going to have a pretty nice display. We will have catalogs available. We will have promotional buttons, different button each day to
I was
pass
just going
out.
to ask you about that. Are you
Yep.
bringing the buttons again this
Yeah,
time?
I had we sort of had a brief conversation of what they were going to be. And then I said, I'm busy, so keep me out of it. Just get it in motion. And I saw an email today that they're about to go into production. I don't even know what's on them. So you'll be as surprised as I will. But we will have a different one each day for free.
That is awesome. And I know we're going to be doing a Hake's preview the week before San Diego
Yeah.
Comic Con on the 11th of July, a Tuesday night.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. I think I'll be there. Sean, Kelly, maybe we squeeze Todd in because there's so much to talk about. This is probably going to be the best round of art we've had since we've been doing your show.
Mhm.
Lots of really great pieces. So we'll have plenty to talk about.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to that. I'm not going to San Diego, so you have to save me a set of buttons. Tell Kelly.
Done.
All right. Well, listen, Alex, fun as always. I apologize for my technical difficulties. I guess I'm going to reboot my computer every time before I go live again. I don't know what the heck happened there, but I apologize for that. But you did fantastic. If you do want to step in anytime,
Yeah.
the chair is yours.
Johnny Carson had replacements every once in a while. You need
That's
me to
right.
step in? I'm your Joan Rivers. How's that sound?
You said it, not me. Cool. Well, listen, again, I appreciate it. I'm glad we finally got this, out of the way. We've been talking about it. It feels like for almost a year, but yeah,
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Thanks for everybody that watched. And again, thanks for everybody in the community that makes this such a fun space to, really enjoy comic art. It's a joy to go in there and add stuff and see what other people have added and commented. And it's what it's all about. What it should be all about.
Exactly. And we can tell everybody too now that you are going to be at OAX in January. Maybe not you, but at least Hakes will be represented there. And I sincerely appreciate that, taking a chance with the new show and everything. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, the way things are coming together, it's going to be exciting.
I think so. We're glad to be a part of it, and it may actually be me. I wouldn't rule myself out. It's really going to come down to the production of whatever auction that is and who's expendable, and I may be available, and I'd love to do it. If not, I got a good crew here, and the booth will be well represented.
That's awesome. All right, Alex. Well, I guess we can call this one a wrap. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for everybody in the chat for hanging out and toughing through my technical difficulties as well. I can't say it won't happen again, but after 3 years, it was bound to happen at least once, where the guest had to do their song and dance to get through the show. But you did a great job, Alex. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks, Alex, again, and we'll see you again soon. And I should remind everybody, if you're going to Heroes, don't forget about the kickoff party on Thursday evening. I know it starts at 5, goes to 1. I think Jack the Radio with George Hodge, hey, we got a music reference here. They go on, I think it's 7:30. So I expect to be there probably between 6 and 6:30. So if you're going to be there, I hope you can make it to the kickoff party. It's going to be a lot of fun. And otherwise, I'll see you at Heroes all weekend. I'm there through Sunday. So thanks for tuning in tonight. We'll see you again.